right, here we go. It's a special one today. Joseph
That's it.
Valtellini,
Hey, buddy.
Bazooka Joe.
I'm excited to see you. I haven't seen that smile in a long time.
You know what's crazy is it's nice to know that I have a famous friend that people
Oh,
probably don't know about because we went to undergrad together.
that's
And I would
it.
say we were best friends through undergrad.
I still tell people we still are. What? We're not anymore? What? We just stopped now?
Every
I still
time
consider you one of my best friends.
I
Come on.
consider it too. Buddy, in life, there's stages, right? Like you think of high school, you think of undergrad. Then I think of my chiropractic career. I'm doing my MBA now, so I never stopped going to school because I'm an
That's
idiot.
it.
Yeah, no, we were. Hey, the problem is you're so famous that
Oh,
every
that's
time I
it.
say
Crazy
let's
famous.
get together, it's always like yeah. But I'm going off to Stockholm. I'm going to,
Yep.
and you're all over the world for glory. So it's hard for me to track you down.
Well, I mean, I tell people right away, I say, he's one of my best friends that I don't have to see him every day.
But we're
And
still
I
the
know
same.
you're the same type
Yeah.
of person too, where it's like, if I don't talk to you in 2 years, you're not going to be upset that we haven't connected.
A
We
little
want
bit.
to.
It hurts right here.
We
a little.
do. We
Just a
want
little.
to, but I mean, look what you've done, man. You've done amazing things, and I'm
Hey, you
proud
too,
of you,
buddy.
Proud of
You
you.
too. You're doing amazing things. That was us, right? That was just our personality when we were in undergrad. We were going to do something. We were both going to go our way. You were the athlete.
Two Italian kids eating mom sandwiches. What goes wrong with that? Look at us now. We make our own food. We can do all of it now.
We won't tell people though how you almost let me die in middle of the forest in winter.
Okay, yeah. We'll keep that one another day.
Oh my God!
I was like, which time? Which time was that?
Oh my God! That's a special one that I got to share one day
Still one of my favorites.
with people.
Hey, but going back to it, now that you went through all the medical stuff, you can help me. That's claustrophobic. I have fears, insecurities. There was a lot more stemming from that day than we know.
Insecurities. Think about it.
I was scared.
If anything, you were safe. I thought I was gonna die that night in that death. What were those things called? Quincy's?
Quincy's, yeah.
Okay, just because people now that if they're watching, they're going to be like, what the hell?
All right, you go for it. Go for it.
When we did our undergrad together, our program had that we had to do like these outdoor types of activities. And because we were in physical and health education, clearly one of us kept up with it and the other didn't.
You're looking good, man. I was going to compliment you.
Look at this hair though, but I haven't had a haircut. For my whole life, because with my dad, obviously, and my sister being barbers and hairdressers, I've had a haircut every 2 weeks in my life, like on the dot. And now I haven't had a haircut in 6 weeks. But so we go on this trip where we were idiots because we decided to go winter camping.
Out of all the options.
Two Italians that still lived at home commuting to school thought we could be independent and go winter camping
and be okay eating little hot dogs off of a fire and not mom's food. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. Let's get real.
So we go winter camping, and part of this thing is they make us cross country ski like 10 kilometers into the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And then you essentially have to build what's called the Quincy, which is sort of like
an igloo.
Yeah, exactly. But it's essentially, it's more like a grave in the snow than an igloo, because you think igloo, you could sit up in it. This thing was a grave. You and I, so you have to build this thing. So you essentially dig out all the snow. Me and you, like idiots, I don't know if you remember this. We went on a hill and we went into the forest. So we had to build.
Where there was no snow. Yeah. So we had to get snow from everybody else whose igloos were 5 times the size of ours.
Oh my God, that was the worst. So it took us forever. And then what they make you do, so the way you're supposed to survive in this thing is you have to light this little candle. You remember this little stupid candle?
Yep.
We get in there, you're supposed to be in your sleeping bag, and then you have to have a hoodie on, and you have to tighten the hoodie so that only this part of your face is out so that you can go to sleep. So whatever, we did it. We're asleep. This guy, around maybe like 2 a.m, whatever it was.
I don't even think it was that late, to be honest.
All of a sudden, after 2.5 years, I decide to find out that's when he's claustrophobic, loses his mind, just starts throwing, like,
kicking the door open.
I got to go down I got to find the counselors. I can't do it. Buddy, I stayed. I froze that whole night because you took the flashlight. So after you took the flashlight, I'm up there. I'm yelling. I'm like, help.
Survival mode at that point. Survival of the fittest.
You left me,
I remember the worst part for me was I went down to the campfire.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and the counselor's like, Joe, you got to go to bed. I was like, I told you before, I don't like tight spaces. I'm not going to be able to sleep. And so me and him got into a little argument. And as a grown student, I had to sleep in the counselor's tent.
Oh.
I left you alone. And as a grown man, I had to sleep with a bunch of counselors with my little bag on. Most embarrassing moment.
You know what the worst part about that night for me was too? I knew that night my family, every year there's a big Valentine's Day dance that happens for the social club that my dad was part of. And my whole family, everybody, all my brothers, my sisters, my cousins, everybody was at that dance. And I'm like, for sure they're having the best time eating, drinking. And then tomorrow they're going to find out that their son died. Like tomorrow they're going to know that I froze to death.
But you know what? I'm going to say that how I knew you were one of my best friends. Do you remember? So they made us the snow boots that we put on. Oh. They froze overnight. And then we had to put our warm feet in these frozen boots to the point where my feet were freezing and you put my feet in your underarms to prevent them from frostbite. So that's the friendship we had.
And I don't know if you remember, I remember that night when it was like freezing cold before we went up to the Quincy and people were around the fire and they're putting their hands out like this. And I don't know if you remember, but I go, Joe, look how stupid these people are. They're putting their hands out over the fire. The snow that was right next to the logs of the fire wasn't even melting. I'm like, if the snow's not melting, what's you doing this gonna do?
The worst.
Anyways,
the worst.
So and it's a perfect segue because now that that was our survival during that time,
survival stories,
and now we have to survive COVID-19. And part of the reason why I wanted to have you on was so one of the things that I'm doing with this podcast is obviously talking about the extent of COVID-19, not just on health, but everything. And I mean, two things, well, maybe three things with you. Number one, you're an athlete. Tell everybody about yourself for people who don't know you. I think most people do, but tell them all the things you've done because I don't think they know. Maybe they may not know.
Well, I'm a kickboxer, and in Canada, it's not really popular here. We can't really, it's still illegal. So we've had to travel internationally a lot to get the fights. But I started with Taekwondo as a kid, so I was just a great fighter. I had this fighter instinct in me the whole time. And just climbed the world ranks quickly, and I became probably the fastest world champion in kickboxing of all time.
Didn't you once tell me that your rise from amateur to like a championship is one of the quickest out of any professional athlete?
Out of all time, out of all kickboxing,
even
of all
boxing and other stuff.
I mean, for sure, you got to think I only had 11 amateur fights before I turned professional, and then when I turned pro, only after 8 fights, I got signed to the biggest kickboxing organization, and I got matched with a legend, and I beat him. So it just was that fast.
And I remember too, when we were in our last year of undergrad, I think that's when you started just sort of doing the Muay Thai just a little bit more formally.
Seriously,
yeah. And then all of a sudden, within 3 years, you're a world champion on the biggest stage for kickboxing.
Yeah. So the thing was, I played university football during at the time at U of T, and I played 5 years, and let's be honest, I won 0 games. But I mean,
worst football team ever.
But you know what? I had such a good learning experience on that team. I didn't know how to play football. I was a third.
Well, they wanted you for the kicking, for your
and
kicking
I did
skills.
Martial arts.
Yeah.
So I did Taekwondo as a kid. So going into Muay Thai, I was a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. So I had martial arts experience. Yeah. But I was just a Scarborough kid who knew how to fight. I was good.
Well, that was one of the things where we connected too, because I did wrestling throughout high school, and then the jiu-jitsu stuff. Now, obviously, you took it to the next level and decided to become a world champion over here.
Well, look at you. You're a world champion in your chiropractics, man.
Yeah,
we just
great.
Put our dedication in different things.
100%.
So yeah, I just literally shocked the world. I mean, I won my 10th professional fight with someone who had over 100.
Wow.
Professional fights, and these guys have hundreds of amateurs. So I think it was just my will to win, and just that hard-head Italian just got me climbing the ranks.
I thought you were Sicilian. I thought you hated it when I told you were Italian.
We're going there now. Okay, we're going there.
Well, that's a big thing that you always used to tell me. You're Sicilian. You're not Italian.
Better looking, nicer dark skin. We know how to eat well.
Hey, my son's got dark skin now too because of the Spanish side. So
Let's hope he gets that hair. I can't stop looking at it. I hope he gets that.
But I haven't had a haircut in so long. It took a lot to get it to stay like this when it's this long is tough. Your hair looks good though. How did you, like, why is it so short?
I kind of clip on the sides myself here. I get the scissors and I just do a little scissor fade.
There you go. So then, you became Glory champion in your weight class. Now you're also a Glory commentator. So you travel.
I transitioned. So again, where I think connected again, I ended up suffering from concussions in my career. And so I decided the smart thing, because I love my family and everybody so much, that I took the role of commentator, which has been honestly the best decision I've probably made in my career. Less hits, more financial benefits. I get to travel the world, and now I get to go to these places and eat. Man, when I was traveling to fight, I had to cut all this weight. I couldn't eat. Now I was a kid who never traveled much. I think the first time I went on a plane, I was 15 years old, to Cuba. My first time in Europe, I think I was in my 20s.
Same as
I never really traveled much. So this gave me an opportunity to travel for free, do what I love, and continue with my passion. So,
and talk. You love to hear your voice, so you get
sometimes.
I guess we had that in common,
but we can both talk like animals.
So then you become Glory commentator, obviously. Then you also
4 years doing that.
You've also opened up a gym.
Yep. That's where the other part of the COVID's really impacting me a lot, is having to close down my gym. Which is the most stressful part of it, because that's my school, that's what I started, my students, and seeing my students. Like I was saying, the people that are affected the most for me, it's like my fighters are going to be fine. They know how to train. They do in their own solo workouts. But it's those people who've come in who have found a new social group, who may not be so confident. Now they're coming in every single day. They're away from home, and just seeing so many people come in, intimidated, and now they're, so much better through martial arts, that it's those people that it kind of really affects me a lot, that the doors are closed.
Well, that's a big thing, right? Where even with kids, when you encourage like kids to be part of sport, it's really to give them a community. Like those people that take on what you're teaching them, they become part of your bigger community. Those are their friends. They almost become like family members. Kickboxing and any type of sport is highly addictive once you start getting into it, right? So you want to be there. You want to get better. They have the opportunity to be trained by you, someone as great as you in that field, your team. It's tough, 100%. I say that too with the patients that we've had to, so we can do some small amount of work in terms of emergency care, but in general, like not everything is an absolute emergency, right? So at the end of the day, the people that are suffering the most are the people that would utilize what we do, whether it's my patients or the patients from our clinics or your students that are there to learn. And you're right, the people, your professional fighters that you train, they know what to do. You know what to do. You're gonna do it. What have you guys done? I know obviously your YouTube channel and all the stuff you do there for training. Any other things that you're doing, or
we're just trying the best we can. It's like I've been doing this YouTube channel for the last 3 years. So for my students, they basically have an online curriculum of unlimited resources.
And like anybody can find that, right?
Everybody, yeah. Oh yeah, it's for everyone. But for my students in particular, like they know what we work on. They've seen it, so they can go back and really learn. I've added more like quarantine specific workouts, because again, you have no partner to train with. And when you think of martial arts, you always think of having a partner, sparring, hitting, pad work. So I'm just doing more solo drills, getting a little bit more creative for things back home. Just for my gym in general, we had a little app we've got a little app going now where we're uploading videos. We're starting Zoom classes this week.
Nice.
Just trying to keep people as engaged as possible. It's tough, but I just think it's going to be tough. And I've been having these conversations with other gym owners, and this is where I wanted to get your perspective on how do you think, we're going to get back into opening my gym?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a gradual return across the board for everything, right? Where it's going to have to be some type of plan in terms of, mitigating the amount of people together at any one time, making sure that it's as, sanitary as possible. I was speaking to somebody that owns a jiu-jitsu gym, right? And jiu-jitsu, when you're on top of one another, like it's not even just about whether you can open or not. At what point do people feel comfortable to want to do that, right? That's a challenge. And I think in reality, that's a challenge for even a restaurant, right? Like if a restaurant is open back up tomorrow for you and I to go, I think both of us would still be a little hesitant to say like,
for sure.
Yeah. Like it's a mindset now too, right? Where it's going to be, I think, gradual, where people are going to have to get into it. But I think at some point, I think there's also, at the same time, there's a hunger for people to want to get back to normal, right? Like I'm itching, you're itching to go back to do the things that we do. So I don't know. I'm honestly torn in terms of what could happen, whether it goes one way or another, or it's probably going to be a hybrid of both, right? You'll have some people who are absolutely going to not want to do things right away. And then you have other people that are going to, right away at the first opportunity, jump all over it to get out, do things, be active. I think with what you do, right? Again, going back to the addictive component of being part of martial arts and in general, any sport, I think a lot of your people are going to be wanting to come back as soon as they can. So I don't think you'll have an issue there. I think the limitation is going to be when we're allowed.
And the restrictions in place too, right? You have to think, I mean, I have a really popular school with a lot of members.
Yeah.
And at any time in my gym, I have maybe 3 classes going on at once, where there's probably 100 people in that space.
Yeah,
if there's going to be restrictions with the distancing, like think about holding pads for someone. If I'm holding round kicks and someone's punching, like you might be a little bit distance, but the spit, the saliva's coming out. And
yeah, especially your heart rate is up, your respiratory rate is up, so you're breathing more, you're doing all that stuff. I know it's a crazy thing, but at the same time, physical activity, like the one thing that I think is crazy is that you look at this virus, and the people that succumb to the worst illnesses seem to be when they have other comorbidities that are related to lifestyle. So things like obesity, high blood pressure, all these things, which are mitigated with physical activity. So, I think for a lot of people, I know the idea is, well, do it at home. But a lot of people, it takes that motivation to get out and go somewhere to want them to do it. Your home is sort of like, from a mindset perspective, it might be where you all of a sudden are like, no, this is my relaxation. So this is where I don't do that stuff. So I think that's a hard thing too, for some people to some people may also not even have the tools to do it at home, or the space, or whatever it may be. So I think physical activity, and that's what you're providing too, right? Outside of just training in terms of learning a skill set, you're also keeping people physically active. And I think that's really important during this time, right?
And I think if I have to adapt my program, that's okay too. So, I mean, even the times we're off now, we're anticipating maybe a slower return where we might have to practice a little bit more social distancing. So we're going to install some bags. We're going to probably add more bags. So at least with bag work, you're at a little bit more distance. You're by yourself. You can wipe it down, keep it really clean. Maybe if we have, a set of 20 bags, I can maybe do classes of 20. But it's just like you said, it's the biggest part for people in the sports world now. For me, my whole life and financial system is based around sport. With no glory events happening, I don't know. Like, that's the other issue, is like, when are they going to allow sporting events back with audience and attendance, travel? All of my fights, I have to travel. So like, there's so much in limbo for me with no sporting events, no gym. And I think that's where the stress comes from.
And especially with glory being on a world stage, right? Like, where you're not just traveling across North America, you're traveling all around the world for your events.
And if I know some of the listeners follow to the UFC, and then Dana White's been a big person on trying to get the entertainment back. And, he's at a point now where he's got a private island where he's trying to build an arena.
What do you think about that?
He's trying to get in Vegas. I was kind of torn about it, because I think the situation they're in, they're almost role models for modeling good behavior. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's the modeling of good behavior. So if now I see my favorite fighter now going to fight, which is tough, because right after this call, like I have a UFC fighter that I train, and we do virtual calls and stuff like that. And he's one of those guys going to be fighting possibly May 9th. So we're trying to go through different talks of being like, okay, there's no audience now. How do you deal with the no noise? They're going to test everybody. I don't know. So I think it's more of them not being an example. Is the biggest picture. But everyone is craving for entertainment. It's going to do really well. The people who are fighting are healthy individuals who are being pre-tested. So, I mean, it's not as bad as it is. It's just, it doesn't look good in the bigger picture.
Yeah, and I agree with you there, because it's twofold, right? Like, I agree with the aspect of, well, why one industry, yes, and not other industries, right? Like the UFC making money is not more important than a restaurant owner making money, right? Like, But again, I agree with you. You're telling people to be stuck at home. At the very least, entertainment is an important thing, right? And pretty much all of it. And I guess fighting is in that unique world where you can also, I mean, besides the two people that are in that ring or that cage fighting, really nobody else has to be on top of one another or doing anything.
Well, you need a referee, but he's obviously keeping his distance as well.
Okay, but even at three people,
are far away.
It's not but bad. Even three people, like I consider a basketball court, you're going to have at least 10 people in close quarters, right? Like it's that much more. That's 70% more. So that's a lot. So I don't know. I agree with you. I'm torn on that. I was following that too on whether, what do you think about that? Is that something that I agree the role model aspect of it is important too, right? When you're in the positions that you guys are, there are people that look up to you. And then what message does that send? So I don't know. It's crazy, but the other reality of it is some of these organizations have massive expenses that if they're not making anything, then it's just they're purging money all the time.
Yeah, but that's where everyone is in situation, right? I mean, I've heard the fight world say like, these fighters don't get paid unless they fight, and what are they going to do? It's like, but nobody's getting paid right now. So I mean, why are they more important than anybody else? Like we're all in an unemployed state right now.
I guess they're comparing it to other athletes though, right? They might be comparing it to other athletes. Like I don't know what the other sports leagues are doing, but if you're in the NBA and you've got a contract, are they still paying those people? I don't know the answer to that, but maybe that's the comparison.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, also too, you're getting in Florida, WWE is considered an essential business.
I know.
Now, which is something.
Which it is.
It is. It's essential, Apparently, this last WrestleMania was all pre-filmed, pre-taped, and it was one of the most watched. And to me, it was terrible.
Yeah.
But people are craving entertainment right now. So if they can deliver it in like a nicer, smaller, controlled way, I'm not overly against it. Yeah. But like I said, I'm still torn. I'm not too sure.
Is Glory considering anything like that, or no? They don't. They just not the resources.
The problem is all the restriction. All of our fighters are international, so it's really difficult. So I think what we're waiting for is getting these little restrictions passed where we can at least hold an event. And if they hold an event where a lot of our fighters are in Holland, what I can do now is maybe I meet somewhere in North America with my broadcast partner and my producer who's also American, and maybe we can call something from a location remote, in the US. That's what we're trying to think. That's best case, the slow progression back. But I mean, who knows? Like flights. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like I'm gonna be very intimidated to go be flying to Europe every other week. That's tough on me, tough on being nervous on what's happening. We have some older people in the business as well.
Yeah. You're young and healthy, so you'd be just fine. But I see what you're right. The concern is never just about yourself. You've got your mom, your dad. Like you don't want to then be around people that.
And that's the biggest priority, right? Yeah. And I mean, as I say, the biggest problem for me is those who have no symptoms and are carriers of it, right? And I mean, that's what I try to tell people. Like, yes, you might not have signs, but don't go see my parents anymore. Like, I don't care if you're healthy or not. My parents don't need to see anybody. No. Like, even family. Like, I haven't even seen my parents. Like, I've done social distancing through the windows, and
I know.
It's been tough.
Yeah, I know. My mom has basically seen my Antonio, my son, every week since he was born, and then at least once a week, and then now for the last 6 weeks, she hasn't seen him. We went by twice and did like a thing from on the lawn from far away, but it's not the same. Like
you haven't even probably hugged or kissed your mother in how long?
No, she doesn't like doing that to me anyway, so that's fine.
Oh, it doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah,
as long as your hair looks good, she's all right.
But yeah, so
that's the most important.
It's a crazy thing. What types of things? So are you still going to the gym on your own to keep active? Like what are the things?
Yeah, I still go because remember I'm the owner of Bazooka Kickboxing, so I have a full gym to myself now, which is nice.
That's pretty nice.
It's pretty nice. Just kind of do my thing, and that's where I am. Blessed people are like, oh, you're so lucky you have a bag. I was like, well, I worked hard to get this gym and this whole bag, and this whole area is under jeopardy right now. Is the longer this stays, but But it's nice to have that space. I'm really self-motivated, so that the quietness. My first workout in the day has to be quiet anyway. So it's just hard not to be around with my guys, like my training partners, my members, and
all that stuff.
I'm there all day, every day. That's been the hardest part.
And another thing that I think would be interesting, because maybe people don't know this about you, but you were also, when you graduated, you went to teachers college, and you were a licensed teacher and practicing teacher.
For 8-9 years.
8-9 years. Yeah. So
I did health and physical education for special education.
Yeah. What's your take on the education situation? I mean, I know you're not teaching anymore, but you did it for long enough that I think your opinion's valid, like with what students have to go through, with what teachers have to go through, the whole thing.
I just think it's stress on everyone, but I think the direction that the school board was going was more towards, home learning anyways. So I think you can teach anywhere, you can learn. I mean, as long as the teachers are on board you do all of these different Zoom calls and Google Hangouts and stuff like that.
But what about,
I think the kids can learn, but they're missing out on the most important part of school, is interacting, the social skills, which again, but at this time now, at least, they're still getting their education.
But what about things like, you were a phys ed teacher, right? Like physical education, and you and I did our undergrad in that. And the whole thing is always about how important that is in education. They're not getting that structured at home. Potentially they're cooped up, and some parents,
the parenting again, right?
Yeah, the first level. It's true.
You can't put, but the problem is too many parents in general, by ranting on the education system, but too many people just like, oh, it's the teacher's job. No, the discipline comes from home. Not taught by the teacher. Respect is taught at home. Structure is taught at home. There's certain things that have to be taught at home. So, I mean, those types of like values of being physically active have to come from home.
Yeah,
like being at a school, you're forcing everyone to do physical activity, and there's 5 athletes in the class that want to be there. The other 25 hate you and pissed off.
No, it's true.
It's a value, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. I'm sure kids now are, playing more video games than ever, less active than ever. And I'm sure even couples are hating each other and stressed out. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that. And I've even had the conversation of people now are so bored at home that they're buying pets. And then when they go back to work, what are they going to do with all of these dogs now that they have, and they can't take time for them? And I just think people are bored, and they're just craving for things.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think kids would want to learn. I mean, talking about being physically active, you go outside now, there's more people outside when they're not supposed to be physically active than ever before. So in a way, this time off has shown people the value of, being maybe physically active, appreciate things a little bit differently. So I think there's some positives from this time off that, I mean, most people would wish for some time off, like someone who's really works, push, like they would love to have this time off on home. But now that they have it, they don't know how to use it because they're not used to it. But I mean, there's so many things you can be doing. Like in quarantine, I've already read 2 books. I've started reading more. I'm studying videography. So I never even read in school. I never even read in school.
I was going to say, so you've read 3 books in your whole life then, if you've just read 2.
That's it. So I've been reading more. I'm studying film. I'm learning how to do videography and learning how to edit. So I'm practicing skills, at least in this time, that I can.
Yeah, you got to adapt, right? And do new things for sure. This is part of what this podcast is trying to get more of a message out in a different type of platform than just radio. So, I mean, but you said, I think something that's really, really important. And I think hits home for guys like me and you that grew up a certain way. I think you're right, though. A lot of this stuff starts at home, right? Like, I think there's too much of a reliance in the world right now on always putting the responsibility, not just for parent, but for everything. Like, the responsibility always falls on someone else, not realizing that, sometimes responsibility just falls on you, whether it's for yourself or about how you educate your kids and all those things. And hey, there's problems on both sides there with the school board and with the parenting and stuff. But I think you're right. There's no one that would say that it should not be the responsibility of, we've all got to take a certain level of responsibility for everything, in terms of everything, education, doing the right things around this. I think you're right about that stuff.
It's the responsibility. It even pisses me off too, like within your field of things. Like, I get asked a lot of questions being like, oh, my back hurts, what should I do? Or something like that, and it's like, you're not doing anything, so it's not going to get better. You know what I mean? It takes effort for things to get better. So, I mean, you can't just sit here and have back pain and sit there and be like, oh, my back pain still hurts, and go to see you once a week or once a month and be like, oh, my back still hurts.
Yeah.
You know, it takes daily effort, conscious, you know, decisions that every day I'm going to stretch. I'm going to do this mobility. I'm going to do some type of work.
Yeah.
But people don't want to put the work in to do that, right?
But that's the story of life, right?
Again, it keeps us in business, that people don't want to fix themselves and learn these things or learn kickboxing at home. There's always a need for us, but people just don't put the effort in, and it's frustrating.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to what you're saying. But I think that's consistent with anything you look at in life. Like you brought up the example of how people say, "Oh, you're lucky to have those bags," but you have those bags because you didn't stop. I remember when you first started fighting, and we would talk, and you were teaching full time. You were teaching full-time job, and then you spent the rest of your days training. Like that's
eating dinner,
dedication.
driving to Brampton, eating dinner from a 8-hour teaching job to train for 4 hours.
But that's what I mean. It's no different than back pain. Success in business is the same thing. Really what it is about consistent dedication every day. And that doesn't matter whether you want to be the best fighter in the world, you want to open up a successful business, you want to educate people, you want to do whatever. It's about showing up every day, having the dedication, the consistency, the discipline to continue going and going and going. And I think that's one of the great things that martial arts teaches people for their lives. It creates those crossover habits, right? Like that's a big thing that you and I would always learn back in school with sport is you create in this one area, you create a type of habit that you can then take to other parts of your life.
And I think, I always say it, I'm a little biased, but I think everyone should do some form of martial art in life. I think it teaches something in life that you don't get. And I feel in life, you need hardships to understand the good times. So, and what I think kickboxing teaches you, or martial arts, you don't have to, when people think martial arts, they think fighting. It's not fighting. It's a way of living. It's a way of being. So as a martial artist now, if I'm tired or fatigued or maybe sore and I'm hurt, how do my guys react for it? We're like, no, we get up, we go, and we push even harder to get up, you know, because we don't want to stay down. But if you're not put in situations where you have to get up and you have to push beyond what your mind tells you, you don't get that a lot in regular life. I mean, so I think that's an important lesson that people could learn from martial arts. And I think it would also help people when it comes to anger management and road rage, because they're going to understand where they stand when it comes to their abilities. Because I think people who've never thrown a punch think they know how to throw a punch. And they really don't know how. So it'll keep people safer.
That's the nice thing about getting your ass kicked, right? Like when you do formal martial arts, I remember when I was doing more of that stuff, and you get your ass kicked, you start to realize, because you have this perception, like, you might think you're the toughest guy in the world, but then all of a sudden you realize there's a Joe Valtellini out there, and you're like, man, like, you know.
But it's like in anything. Like I'm one of these people, like I'll watch an MLS soccer game. Like I could play there. Like I'm way better than this guy. I'm faster. And then I'll go on a game and I couldn't even touch the damn ball.
Are you going to tell everybody about your first amateur loss in jiu-jitsu to me, or no? That we'll keep that quiet though.
This one? I don't even know this one. I forgot that one.
Oh, you don't remember during one of our rotations? No, it was in one of the rotations. I think we were joking around in a squash. We were playing squash or whatever, and then I think we just, you know, because every once in a while.
But you had the wrestler, man. Look at your body frame. You're short. You're stocky.
Fat. You used to tell me how fat I am all the time.
You were the ones who got me eating. You and our good friend Joel every day wanted to go to the buffets and eat. And I was like, damn, I put on, in first year university, I weighed my heaviest ever, 218 pounds.
Yeah. But that's everybody in first year university.
Let's work out. And you got to eat. And I'm sitting eating. I was like, well, my stomach's growing.
Joel used to have like 7 peanut butter sandwiches a day. But that guy, the difference was he wasn't Italian. He didn't have that genetic like me and you that we just put on weight. He could eat and never gain a pound.
Sure, he had a peanut butter sandwich. We had a big panino with 10 slices of prosciutto. We had salami. We had cheese. The bread is about this thick. Your sandwiches, you would used to have always in tin foil and had rabini in it.
Oh, my mom, buddy. She took care of me like that.
Yeah. And you remember my favorite story, my mom brings it up, when you came home asking your mom to make banana
bread. Buddy, you know, it's crazy you bring that up, because Jocelyn tried to make banana bread a little while ago, and we were talking about it. And I go, and she's like, and she was asking me about my mom. I'm like, no, my mom never made banana bread. I'm like, actually, she started making banana bread when Joe's mom, your mom, gave her the recipe. And I'm like, and ever since then, I love banana bread.
But didn't she say something like, why doesn't Joe moms make the banana bread?
Yeah, because I went home and I
told Joe's mom to make the banana bread.
I went home and I said, but Joe's mom makes banana bread. And she's like, well, you can tell Joe's mom to make you banana bread.
The banana bread. We should have been smarter. We should have played them off of each other so we would have got nice snacks, you know?
I don't think I suffered in that end. If anything, my mom was always too lenient on that
Remove some of the snacks.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's totally different. Like, I think of the way I grew up, like, and then with my son, I'm much pickier with, like, how much food we give him and stuff like that. Because, you know, we understand more. They did it out of love and whatever. That's the way the old Italian moms showed their love, was just let us keep eating.
Force feeding us.
Yeah, they just didn't stop. And if you didn't eat, so. But anyways, buddy, it was awesome to talk to you. I really appreciate you doing this.
Talk to you.
Yeah, but anytime you want to. Yeah, 100%. Thank you, sir.
All right, buddy.
Where can people find you if they want before we go? Instagram.
Instagram's the best.
Yeah, you're famous on there. You're officially you got the little blue star.
I got the blue check. It makes me cool.
So
your cool points automatically go up 10 points.
100%. Bazooka Joe. What do they type in? Bazooka Joe.
Bazooka Joe V.
There you go.
Then I have my gym page, Bazooka Kickboxing, YouTube if you want to try any.
And it's all good stuff because you've got a lot of stuff on there, and you give a lot of.
My YouTube stuff is awesome. So the concept behind it, I started as, I'm going to take you from someone who's never done martial arts before, and each episode progressively gets more advanced, so you can kind of learn as you go through the episodes. And I've had over 101 technical episodes, plus quarantine trainings and bag works and tips and fights, to keep you busy for all of quarantine.
There you go. Check it out. Thanks, buddy.
Later, buddy.